first week of the Grandmasters? Very quickly as we get into game number one.
Hunter's kind of a interesting choice. I'm not sure. We'd have to see how the games go out and see what they might have thought from there.
Yeah, it's evening for us, but we'll stay up late and watch it and see how Hunter pans out. But for now, let's kick off game number one. The Asia Pacific Hearthstone Grandmasters. Surrender versus Staz. Surrender on the Warrior, Staz on the Summoner Mage. Let's see how it goes. Does have Doomsayer in the opening hand, but most importantly, Conjurer's Calling and a giant IC language hacker.
Yeah, kind of almost exactly what you want against Warrior. All you're missing is a Book Specters, and then you'd be able to slam that giant on turn 3.
Already just going for the Mage Discover, and for me at least, Spellbender looks fantastic because it helps dodge the the shield block, shield slam that can happen. So it might allow you to play a giant on curve, because I feel like normally versus Warrior, you might not want to do that because a single giant feels susceptible to a lot of the removal that's available, and then you've just thrown a giant away for nothing.
Agreed. Yeah, the protection against shield slam is very interesting. It looks like Staz agrees. It's interesting to note the other two options weren't actually useless either. Elemental Evocation, if you wait a couple turns, you might be able to go Elemental Evocation, Giant, Coin Conch Calling a turn earlier than you'd have to wait for turn 5, where you'd actually have to spend 3 mana on the Giant and then coin out the Conjurer's Calling. And the Ray of Frost, if you expect a minion on 3 or a minion on 4, or even later on in the game if you're trying to lock the opponent out and just kill him, the Ray of Frost could help do that. But it looks like Spellbender's going to be the pick.
Yep, I do like the Spellbender pick myself. And a small note as well, in terms of the evocation, it works, if you imagine it, like an Innovate for Mountain Giant in the deck. That's mainly how it works, at least in this version specifically, as he isn't playing the Mana Cyclone. So it is just effectively make the Giant cost 1 less.
Interesting choice here. So obviously at 3 mana you can choose to just play out the Spellbender. You could also even choose to play out the Doomsayer in case you want to stop your opponent's surrender from developing anything else. But if you pass this turn, just spend your mana pinging. Next turn the Giant becomes 4 mana and you could play that.
Yeah, it's a real tough one, isn't it? Because for me, I would want the Spellbender on live to protect the Giant, but it delays the Giant play. So it's kind of a weird backwards option. There was also, to a reasonable extent, just a coin Twilight Drake if you really want to save the Giants for later on and just get a threat out that can start chipping this armor, and something that Surrender does have to consider. You can't just let a Twilight Drake punch you in the face a few turns in a row.
Yeah, 4 attacks no joke. It's not just Priest that doesn't want to get hit by 4 attack. Well, the Augmented Elic pickup. It's possible Surrender's considering if he wants to play that out or develop the Orange Caliber.
What now?
I find it really tricky, as no Bomb Warrior specialist myself at all, but how you decide you've gained enough from the Elic, or if you decide that you can play it as a 3-mana 3/4, which is sometimes good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to combo it with the bomb activations, but now with Weapon, he does blow maybe 1 to 2 charges of this weapon that he already has equipped, but maybe getting the weapon equipped now and then just setting up for an Elic is as good as it's going to get, because it's unlikely, I would say, that anything else is going to be used tons in the near future. There is the Ziliax, of course, and then the removal of the Dynomatic, but I think I just like locking the weapon in now. Everything else feels a little bit weak.
I think Surrender might be concerned that in Staz's primary list he has 2 Oozes and a Harrison Jones.
Right.
So three
he
cards
does not appreciate weapons.
Exactly. Weapons are not his friend. He actually chose the shield block, which is kind of interesting here. I'd have expected to try and get some tempo on the board, maybe play out the Elic even without using its effect.
I guess the thought plan of, well, there can't be a Mountain Giant this turn because the Spellbender was played, which means that he doesn't need a minion on the board plus X to actually remove it. It's like plus Ziliax on 5 or plus the Dynomatic. So because of that, he isn't afraid of a Twilight Drake. So he just thought, I'll just draw a card, gain some armor, might draw Shield Slam as well, which makes an answer easy in the following turn. So, or at least as far as he's aware. He obviously doesn't know his Spellbender yet.
Could also have been just testing for secrets, see, maybe I just hit a counterspell.
Yeah, maybe he does, yeah.
Light the fuses!
I'm gonna go for the, I'll put like safe removal play. If he did it any other way around, then maybe the Dynomatic hits one of his own minions if he gets something down next turn, but Dynomatic just bringing the Twilight Drake down to its level, being able to be traded off pretty easily as a 4/3. And also, small note as well, even if the Dynomatic's cleared off, he does have the Wrench Caliber that actually kills the Twilight Drake regardless, so pretty nice setup there for Surrender.
There must be a way.
Staz has all the choices now, and what do you make of this? There can be removal with the Scale Worm, but there could just be a Giant played after seeing a Dynomatic.
It's possible. So if he plays the Giant, I'd want him to hit face as well to knock down the armor, so that Shield Slam isn't an option. Surrender's not running Execute in his list, so he's not afraid of just the Dynomatic bumping the Giant. Scale Worm, I think, is a good answer to the Dynomatic, but I'm not sure that answering the Dynomatic's that relevant. Obviously, there's just a one of Zilliax, but playing the Scale Worm and trading opens you up to just Warpath clearing your board.
That is true, yeah. It's kind of a tough one. He's going to trade and develop the Giant, and I think the only reason this is happening is because of Spellbender, because if he didn't have that secret live, I think you just hold the Giant there and play anything else and just wait for Conjurer's Calling. Like, you don't really need to, you know, rush this matchup, at least in my opinion, especially because he's playing the sort of, you know, big derpy dragon list with so many minions in it. I think you don't have to rush. But he did just go for getting that Giant down. The Spellbender is going to protect it from most of the threats that Surrender has, so just going to play Hearthstone and draw a card.
Yeah, makes sense. The only spell in Surrender's deck that actually procs Spellbender is Shield Slam, so that's actually one of the best secrets you can pick up in this mirror.
It's actually pretty crazy, isn't it? Okay, and now, does Staz just go? He can afford to. He has 2 Conjurer's Callings in hand, which does have Twin Spell, which is effectively 4 Conjurer's Callings he can play this game already from hand. He could just, say, trade the Harrison or go face, and then double Conjurer's Calling if he really wanted to. That would generate a lot of extra minions for him, but does he need to go that far in? Can he play even slower?
I'd be very surprised to see him play no Conjurer's Calling. I think at least one's coming down.
Oh, yeah, I feel like you have to play what? I mean, you've got a Giant on the board, come on.
But yeah, after that he has to decide how much he wants to come into the board. Surrender knows it's not Counterspell. We saw Shield Block being played and it didn't proc the secret, so Brawl is a possibility if you extend with 2 Conjurer's Callings. Scale Worm.
Okay, with the trade,
right?
Surely we're seeing coin. There we go.
This
I was wondering if he was going to Conjurer's Calling, maybe even twice, which could be overkill, but use the 2 separate twin spells to keep the card count high for Astromancer next turn.
Right.
It was just a small consideration. I didn't actually see what the card count was, but yeah, he did go with that play instead, and now he has the 7/8 taunt along with a fresh Giant and a 5/3. So I think this is the first turn that Staz is saying, okay, Surrender, do you have a Brawl in hand?
Yep, now you start checking for answers.
Big deal as well is he only runs 1 Brawl in this initial list.
Yeah.
So it's as unlikely as it's ever going to be that it's in Surrender's hand right now, and you can see Surrender's kind of like, I know there's a secret that isn't, it's not split an image because he killed a minion.
Right.
He knows it's not Counterspell because he's shield blocked. So he has to be thinking worst case scenario. It's unlikely with choices that Staz is picking Ice Barrier or Vaporize, for example.
Right.
It's about to get the bad news, the eyebrow raised and a bit of a shake of the head from Surrender, as he's about to get hit very hard in the face by Staz next turn.
And with this armor Shield Slam, there's no way to clear anything else on the board. Militia Commander plus the weapon is only 7 damage. Has to decide how to spend the rest of his mana. He could either keep... I think Shield Block's the right call. I don't think you're answering this board without finding your 1 Brawl, so... oh my god.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The Brawl he did find, so Surrender's ready for next turn. And now, the big question is, because Staz didn't see the Brawl that he knew Surrender would have played if he had it, is he going to go deeper down the rabbit hole
and how deep
and
down
say,
the rabbit hole?
and let's go full Alice in Wonderland here, fill up the board and go face? But I will say, even if he did, he still has a lot of juice left in the tank. I think I would like to see him maybe 1 more Conjurer's Calling, but hold the Astromancer.
Interesting. I actually want to play the Astromancer this turn. Conjurer's Calling is a lot easier even after the Brawl. With 3 mana left over, there's not a lot Surrender can do post-Brawl if you happen to have drawn it.
I'm just worried that if the 5/3 survives, the Scale Worm survives the Brawl, or even if Surrender could play a minion and Brawl, and then they could win. And then you're struggling to use up the Conjurer's Calling, whereas I think you have 3 Conjurer's Calling left. Like, you may as well throw when you've got 2 more and you still have an Astromancer.
Actually, that's a fair point. One of the Conjurer's Calling is still a twin spell. So you
exactly.
He
has 3 in hand, effectively. Which means, you just use 1 twin spell and then hold Astromancer in case he brawls. Because he either brawls, you refill with Astro, or he doesn't brawl, you've won.
Oh,
so
this is interesting. He's holding back here. I think part of this lends to the fact that Alex Strauss is in hand, so he knows he doesn't need to just kill him straight from 30, which he's already succeeding to do, by the way. But if he just keeps the board state kind of like this with 2 or 3 minions, eventually Alex Strauss will just kill him.
Yeah, that's true. There's not much you can do, even with a bit of armor. If you set down to core health 15, well, you already see there's a lot of damage on board as it is, so it's going to make up the difference pretty quickly. And again, Surrender's going to have to make a tough choice here.
So with both shield slams gone and a weapons project, activating the second shield slam is very difficult.
I'm wondering whether he just has to play the Clockwork Goblin and brawl.
Oh,
say I need to win the brawl.
I think that's just the line. Everything else, nothing else works,
Then,
right?
then you've got, I would say, a 50% chance, an acceptable outcome. Either your Goblin wins or the Scale Worm wins, which is still bad, but not horrendous. But if you brawl first, well, the minion that lives you're doing nothing about anyway. So I think he does need to play that Clockwork out. Okay, he's going for Elic. Oh, Elic brawl, sure.
Well, this makes sense. He's seen a Scale Worm, so this is a bit better if the Elic wins the brawl because then the bomb follow-up.
That is true.
Biggest minion lives.
And now there's
Oh
Mr.
my.
Khadgar.
Right on time.
Yep. And this is just... Look, this is why the matchup's tough. This is why this version, especially of the Mage deck, was built, was to beat Warrior. Like, how do you remove all of this? He can Khadgar Conjurer's Call in to create umpteen giants, effectively. Then, if all that somehow goes away with the one brawl used, he can Astromancer Conjurer's Call in. Then he can Rabble Bouncer Conjurer's Call in. It never ends, Language Hacker.
This looks like lights out. I can't think of anything that Sender could come up with in his deck that answers this.
How beautiful. And this is where you've got to ask the question, right? Already, game number 1 of this Specialist format and of Grandmasters League is that as Surrender concedes, everyone put everyone else on Warrior or Rogue. So some players brought Mage, and if they ran into a Warrior, honestly, it often looks like that.
Yeah.
There is not a lot most Warriors can do against that. So